Hello everyone and welcome back to Helio Sports World once again. I'm back after a long gap. It's been 3 weeks almost since I last made a video, but we've got a huge UFC pay-per-view on our hands for this weekend with UFC 274. A solid card featuring some big names like Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje, who will obviously headline for the UFC lightweight title. Then we've got Rose Namajunas defending her strawweight title against Carla Esparza in the co-main event. But the one fight that I'm going to be talking about and looking into in this video is the big lightweight showdown between Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler. So yeah, without any further ado, welcome back to Hilo Sports World once again everyone, and welcome to this new video. Alright, Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler. Obviously a huge fight for both these men, especially considering the fact that Chandler has lost 2 of his last UFC fights, whereas Ferguson will be on a 4-fight losing streak if he fails to win this one. I mean, this right here is a very important fight for both these men, like I said, but personally, I do think that this fight could be a lot more significant for Chandler, given the fact that he could still find himself in the mix to fight for the title at some point down the line. As for Tony, as much as I like him, as much as we all like him, I just don't think this man is going to be fighting for the title anymore, knowing the fact that he's also 38 by now. And on top of that, Ferguson, of course, told the media that he contemplated with the idea of competing in a boxing match. But of course, Dana White didn't let that happen. So, interesting turn of events right there as well. I mean, I currently have no clue about Ferguson's current contract with the UFC, but once Ferguson's current contract expires, I think we could see him leave the UFC and compete in the world of boxing instead. And I do believe that would be the right call for him, as he would certainly make a shit ton of money on that side of the world. So yeah, keeping all those things in mind, like I said, I do feel that this could be the bigger fight for Michael Chandler. Let's not forget, he was initially brought into the UFC as a title contender. He was the backup fighter for Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. So yeah, obviously, if you look at all those things from the if you look at all the things from the UFC's perspective, they are probably hoping to keep Chandler in the mix for the lightweight title, as they rightfully should. Now, getting down to the fight itself, I'm not entirely sure which version of Tony Ferguson we're going to see and get this weekend when he finally gets locked into the cage with Michael Chandler. I mean, in his last 2 fights, to be honest, we didn't see the violent version of Tony Ferguson that we have been so used to seeing for all these years. His style of fighting got completely neutralized by the insane grappling and wrestling of Charles Oliveira and Benil Dariush. Now, the reason I said last 2 fights is because in his fight against Justin Gaethje, Ferguson was at least able to hit Gaethje with some good shots. He hit him with that one big uppercut that I remember specifically for some reason. But of course, he didn't do enough eventually. He couldn't keep up with Gaethje's pace and lost the fight. If you look at it though, the same cannot be said for Ferguson's performances against Oliveira and Dariush. Over the years, Tony Ferguson has established his place as a fighter who likes to start slow in his fights. He likes to take things slowly and maintain that certain speed without rushing in. We saw it in his fights against Kevin Lee, Donald Cerrone, and Anthony Pettis. Ferguson initially started off slow in all those fights, and at one point it did seem that he was going to end up on the losing side as the fight gradually progressed. But he quickly turned things around for himself quite nicely and eventually got the job done in all those fights, of course. Now, do I think we'll see that classic old version of Tony Ferguson this weekend? I certainly don't think so. Personally, I think we might see a much more calm and self aware version of Tony Ferguson. We can certainly see signs of his self awareness in the interviews leading up to this fight. But at the same time, I do think that this fight will be controlled by Michael Chandler and not Tony Ferguson. Now, the reason that I say that is first and foremost, Chandler's last fight against Justin Gaethje was an absolute war. And in all fairness, when you go through a fight like that, you certainly leave a piece of yourself in the octagon. I mean, these type of wars are honestly hard to recover from, and they eventually take a toll on your career, which is something that we are currently seeing with Tony Ferguson. I mean, this guy has been constantly fighting at the highest level against some absolute killers, and now in his late 30s, Ferguson has definitely slowed down a lot when you compare him from the 2019 version of Tony Ferguson. I mean, that fight against Donald Cerrone was probably the last time when we saw the actual version of El Kukui and what he's truly capable of. So yeah, getting back to Michael Chandler, I do think we're going to get a very smart fight on his behalf and not witness him fight like an absolute madman, something which he did in his fight against Justin Gaethje. With Gaethje and Chandler, it was almost expected that both these guys were going to stand in the middle and trade and swing for the fences for the entire 3 rounds. Now, when it comes to a Tony Ferguson fight, the same could have been said, but this time I don't think Chandler is making that same mistake of swinging for the fences with an equally crazy fighter. I think Chandler is going to fight in a very composed manner and slowly look for his openings. I think he will pick his shots very carefully this time and at the same time try and make sure that the fight stays on the feet, which in one way could also favor someone like Tony Ferguson who likes to stand and trade. But of course, in this fight, I could also see Michael Chandler mixing it up with his wrestling so far. And so far in the UFC, we have barely seen Chandler use his wrestling properly. We saw slight glimpses of it in his fight against Charles Oliveira, but I'm quite sure Chandler is well aware of the fact that Ferguson is 100% likely to struggle if this fight goes to the ground. Now, one might argue that Tony Ferguson has great jiu-jitsu. We all know about that. But once again, if we go back to the fights against Dariush and Oliveira, the ground is where Ferguson struggled the most. So yeah, I do think that Chandler will use that to his advantage in this fight. Now, if you ask me to pick either of the two, Chandler standing and trading with Ferguson or Chandler taking the fight to the ground, I will obviously stick to the second option. I mean, Michael Chandler knows that there is a lot on the line for him. For a guy who came into the UFC with title aspirations, he knows that he has to fight smart and make sure he doesn't lose 3 fights in a row. And as for my final predictions, I'm gonna have to go with a victory for Michael Chandler here via a decision. I think he will finally bring an end to his losing run in the UFC, and obviously it's going to suck to watch Tony Ferguson lose one more fight, but as of right now, I just hope that the dude shifts over to boxing, makes a big payday, and retires in peace. That's all we can hope for. So, yeah, a big fight in the UFC's lightweight division, the people's main event, so to speak. This obviously has the potential to be the show stealer from UFC 274. And yeah, that's it for this comeback video. Hopefully, we get the consistency up and running on this channel once again. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.